All right, welcome back to Off the Tap. This week is episode 53, and we're drinking Freetail Brewing Company's Bowie Bock.
I have never had. I think this is actually. Oh no, yeah, I've never had Freetail at all. But I mean, as mentioned, Bowie Bock. It is part of the Remember the Alamo Foundation. I thought at first it was going to be a like a collab brew, the way that it's printed on the can,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Freetail plus Remember the Alamo Foundation. Obviously,
Oh,
Freetail's the
okay.
brewery, but
So
just as we've mentioned.
I wonder if like part of the profits go to that foundation or something.
Oh, I would imagine so. You can tell by the branding and like we've talked about with Bowie and the knives that are on the front of it and like the sayings and I mean his quotes and all that that there's got to be. Like as much as we dive into branding, we did that about the I don't know, there was a couple of military based one. This one's definitely going to be giving some back to the old Alamo,
Oh
the
yeah,
old
I
cathedral.
mean the art is very much reflective of that. It's
Yeah, also
pretty much everything that you would think it would be.
Also, I'm just gonna have to point this out. If I read a little further, listen, I don't even know if you can see this in the camera, but all right, you see the little two icons? Boop,
Yeah.
boop. All right, right below that, this very obvious phrase right here says, "A portion of the proceeds benefit the Remember the Alamo Foundation." I guess I
Okay.
should have read.
We
Yeah,
always do this, bro. We do this almost literally
dude.
every week.
Like snake, it would have bit me. Branch, it would have slapped me.
Yeah.
Bomb, I would have been dead at this point.
Yeah, me too, dude. Me too. It's okay.
If it was the
Yeah. I mean, do what?
if it was the corner of the wall, I definitely would have stubbed my toe on it.
Oh
That's
yeah, the
basically.
pinky toe and the big toe, probably. Honestly.
Mm.
Um.
Ooh.
Yeah. As far as I mean, just touching on the artwork a little bit more too. It's like you said, it's got the knives. The lettering is like that Western lettering. Not really that. I guess the Alamo was necessarily that Western time, but
Very saloonish. No, I mean that's
yeah,
fitting.
saloonish. There you go.
Yeah.
Like
Like what's the again, I know we've referenced Tombstone in the past, but like when he buys in at the craps table or he owns part of the craps table over at whatever the saloon is. I can't think of what it is, but damn it, it's like a card house. It's got a card house vibe to it.
yeah,
Like basically the Vegas before Vegas happened. Think about it. Vegas
mhm,
now does it with like light bulbs and neon signs, but it's been being done for millions of years, or not millions, but hundreds of years before that, but etched in
right.
wood on a placard.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's that text.
Yeah.
100%. Skeleton with a cowboy hat on and a bandana around his neck. All the artwork is like very just what you would think it is,
It's
honestly.
pretty sweet actually. It's
It is
very
really cool. It's honestly, this is, I wouldn't say it's my favorite can I've come across, but the way it ties everything together, it's one of my favorites.
it gives me late night, not I mean I'm not like there's way more to it than this, but it gives me like very late night Cartoon Network like
Yes.
stop animation type vibes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this thing is coming in at 5.3% ABV, which is a little. I mean, that's a little high for a Bach. No, I guess not. Not.
Not much. That's on pace.
That's
And it's
pretty
confirmed on the
average.
can, by the way.
Okay, nice. And 24 IBUs. So that's pretty. That's actually pretty much right on average for a
Is it with
Bach.
the 24? I figured it would be a little less than that on the IB. I mean on the yeah, IBUs.
Mm, we've had another Bach that was a 24, another one that was a 22.
Well,
Uh, Pretty
I will
close.
I will say that it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, it is.
I mean, it seems like it's gonna look dark. Obviously, the camera quality is what's gonna determine that. But it seems a little dark, but it has like a deep um, burgundy when the light comes through it. I mean, almost like a cognac mixed with maple syrup, if we will. But yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it looks nice. It's got a good head on it too.
and it flushed. I don't even know what the terminology is. We're gonna call it flushing. But after I poured it, it flushed very thick, like a stout would, um or like even milk stouts. I know that you're not a fan of milk stouts, but even like a milk stout, the way that it goes from foam to just head, the way that
Hmm.
it cleared itself was very similar, which makes
It
me think it's
also
probably gonna be rich.
it smells delicious as well.
It does.
It smells really
I
good.
I don't think we mentioned this the last time we did box. I'm gonna drink it here in a minute. I'm gonna keep stalling. I mean, stop stalling. But I don't know if we mentioned this the last time, but box have a tendency, if like we have our favorite box, but certain box that are non-standard to us, right? Like a Shiner, like a Crawford, like a Zegan, they have a tendency to be sweet at times. I don't get that
Mm-hmm.
vibe from smelling this, but I haven't tasted it yet.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it and taste it. How about that? It's a little more stout than I would think a Bach
Yeah,
is.
I also get a little more toasty. I don't know if in the finish it's a little toastier,
It
like it's
is more
roastier.
like a toasted Bach almost. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it though.
I do too. I don't know if you're getting this. Gosh, I hate everybody's gonna be like, we're tired of the smacking. Um,
I think
but it
that's
has
part
like,
of it though.
is there not in a bad way, but is there a soapiness when it first goes in? Do you get that, or is that in my mind?
Maybe that's just that you didn't wipe the glass out enough after you cleaned it. I'm not getting that, bro.
Possibly, I did just shower as well. Maybe I got a little bit of soap left in the stash, and it's brushing off in the foam.
Yeah, I'm not getting much soapiness myself, so
Okay.
that might just be on your end. Or, maybe I just can't taste it.
I do get a lot of toasted though. It's not up front. Now I'm tasting it up
It's
front because there's like residual hanging over from the previous
right.
sip. But the first intake, it was like only when it finished was it like, hey, we toasted. Like not
Yeah.
necessarily like the hops or anything like that, but like maybe whatever they put into the malt.
It's kind of like when you go to like a party, right? And you're hanging out or whatever, and then like at the end of the night, it's starting to calm down a little bit and like it's an afterthought to maybe make some s'mores.
Yeah.
That's what this is. It was like an afterthought of a toast, you know?
I was gonna go a completely different direction. You ever been like back in the day when you could smoke in bars and you were in a bar where some people were smoking all night and then like later that night you got home and you drank like you had to get that pre-night water and so you would just bury your face into a plastic cup full of lukewarm water and it would just
Yeah.
taste like an ashtray because that's all the secondhand smoke that was caught in your mouth. That's
Yeah.
what I'm getting. I know that sounds terrible, but that's what I'm getting from it.
Oh, you're talking about flavor wise. I was just talking about the hint of the toastiness of the beer.
Oh, no, no. I'm saying like
I
it
wasn't
just it
saying it
shows
tasted like
up.
s'mores.
Oh, okay, good, good, good. Because I was like, this dude's way. I was trying to like help salvage the direction you were going in because I thought it was way out of bounds.
No, no, no. I was just talking about the hint of the toast at the very end, how it's kind of like an afterthought almost. Because it is.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like it's the aftertaste. It's not on the entry or anything. But yeah, I mean, I like it so far. Obviously, we will get into the ratings and stuff at the end. Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about how the branding is pretty clear here.
Oh yeah.
Freetail Brewing Company is based out of San Antonio, so we know where they're going. Uh, after Jim Bowie, who we looked up because I thought that it was David Bowie, which is definitely not correct. I know that David Bowie was a musician. Don't get it twisted there. Uh, I just thought that that was also the Alamo guy's name for some reason.
Which which again, we don't know. We never connected the dots. We haven't yet, but like, could they be related? I mean, obviously, we kind of had a little bit of a previous discussion that like most of the folks that fought in the Alamo were not. They were Texans, true Texans, but they weren't indigenous to Texas. They
Right.
were transplants that believed in the cause and one way or another found their way there. So that it gives me hope that potentially Jim Bowie was the grandfather 15 times above that of David Bowie.
Yeah, because when was the Alamo?
In the 1830s, 18 late
Well, what
1830s.
that would have made him what if they were related? David Bowie's like great grandpa.
Yeah, I mean, Bowie was big in like the 60s, right? So I imagine David Bowie was born in like the 30s. We got to do some digging on that. So yeah,
Yeah,
100 years apart, maybe a few generations in there. First off, these people didn't live very long. I mean, rest in peace, Jim Bowie,
yeah,
Bowie. But they didn't live that long, so there could have been like 5 generations in there. They were having kids when they were like 20, and then they were only living until they were like 35 or 40.
yeah. I mean that is true. I mean it's the sad reality, but that's just how it was, man.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So, I was way off. David Bowie was born in 1947.
I'd
So
say,
that's still,
I mean, 7 years off. Technically, well, 8 years off technically.
Yeah, but
I
yeah.
mean,
So
be like his great great grandpa. I think we're close to that.
yeah, and I mean, I have no clue if they're together. He spent
No,
all most of his life in Louisiana, by the way.
Jim or David.
No, Jim. David, I'm
Okay.
sure he's from across the pond, but he spent a lot of time in California, I
Ah,
believe, once he got here.
yeah, that makes sense. Well, you never know. I mean, Louisiana is a good music town. You know,
Oh yeah, I mean, I would
or
say
state,
I'm
not town.
sure David Bowie didn't shy away, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Jim Bowie spent a lot of time in Louisiana. Then he made his way over here. Listen, it's been probably about 16 years since I've studied the Alamo, so I don't remember any
oh,
of that stuff.
I mean,
I
I
don't know
go
anything
back
about.
in true Texas fashion, as we all should. I mean, that's how I start my day. I get up before I look over to check my phone, like every other
I
Texan.
remember the Alamo.
I remember for a second.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, sometimes I'll give it a good rethinking. You know, it doesn't.
Mm.
It always we always say you have to remember the Alamo, but it doesn't say you only have to do it once. You know,
Yeah.
you can do it multiple times.
Absolutely.
But I do go back about once a year. And again, I'm not being corny here. I'm really not. And you're gonna be like, bullshit. There's no way. But like in the very back of the mission, like whenever you like go in, you see the cathedral, like you trail around through the gardens, you go to the very back. There's like a video that's like constantly on loop. I'm sure the people that work there are tired of hearing it, but let's be honest, buckle your shoes up. You're a Texan, fucking live it every day.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Remember that.
and and it is a little tear jerk. Like I'm not gonna say that everyone is impacted the same way, and I'm not saying just because I'm a Texan I'm impacted this way, but it is a little bit of a tear jerker because at a certain point, you know, we think about like the cathedral and like what still remains of the Alamo as being like the Alamo, but it's the whole mission itself, right? And
Hmm.
so, dude, can you imagine like for sure. Like it's one thing to know. I mean, I'm not saying that this is any worse than like World War II or anything else that as far as like wars are concerned. But can you like there's one thing about knowing like, hey, like I'm not comparing it to storming the beaches of Normandy by any means. But like those guys were like, hey, there's a pretty good chance we're gonna die. But it's like they found out and then they did it. Okay. And that's terrible. Okay.
Hmm.
But at the Alamo, they were like, hey, we're probably gonna die slowly over a period of 4 weeks. You know?
Yeah.
And guess what? If we don't get killed, we're gonna starve. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that's painful to know that inevitably you're not gonna make it. But every day waking up going, how are we gonna die? I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna die, but we are gonna die.
Right.
And here's the we're pot committed because none of us are leaving this walls. Like to
Mm.
have that number of people just genuinely be like, nope, ride or die. The fucking like the phrase ride or die could have been invented inside those walls. We don't know.
It probably was. Let's be honest.
Maybe.
I mean, I
It's
would
not
like
like
to
we
know
were
where that phrase was invented to begin with, but that had to be a good opportunity for it to come out of those
I mean,
walls.
good possibility that was don't ride and die because obviously they weren't going anywhere, but nonetheless, the concept of ride or
Yeah.
die,
Yeah.
same thing.
That's fair. It also probably could have been invented during the Boston Tea Party. You know,
Yeah.
it was we had to ride or die. That's pretty much what was going to happen. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I've never been to the Alamo. I've never seen
Oh,
it.
really?
No, yeah, I've been to San Antonio a few times. I love it there, but I've never visited the Alamo. I've always wanted to, but I don't know how great it would be to visit now. You know,
Why?
I mean, is it all flat for the most part? I mean, everything around it at least.
No, dude. I mean, now the city's built around it. It's like a rock's throw from the Riverwalk, which manufactured. But
Mm.
like, no, Ripley's, believe it or not, is like facing the cathedral, like right across the street. There's a damn what is that thing? What's the big Hard Rock Cafe right on the corner? So there's like all kinds of stuff that's built around it. I mean, they've preserved like the cathedral. Like when you see the Alamo, like everybody says, "Oh, this is the Alamo." That's just the cathedral. That the Alamo is the actual entire mission that was,
Right.
acre. I don't know how large it was, but acres and acres around it. There's still some of the existing inner walls, which I think were reconstructed during the invasion. So they had like these outer walls, and then they had some inner walls they reconstructed as like, obviously the front moved closer and closer towards where they were held up in the cathedral. But there's like some gardens in there. There's obviously grave sites. There's like where they had uh, weaponry stored. What is that called? Mm,
A weapon room, a
Yeah,
weaponry.
like a weaponry, where they had their cannons and stuff like that. The famous, which I believe the famous cannon, the "Come and Take It" cannon, was also there. That they had stolen from the Mexicans, and then the Mexicans were like, "Well, we need that back," and they were like, "Well, come and take it."
Yeah.
Now, I think obviously it was relocated there. Yeah, I might be incorrect in that. I feel terrible that as a Texan, I don't
No,
remember that history, but
I think
but it's been
that's
20 years.
I think that was at the Alamo. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it wasn't stolen from there. It was stolen from, I think, Gonzales was the original fort that it was that where
Oh,
they commandeered. I think the terminology they is the terminology they used, but it was stolen, and
right.
I think they either stole it from Gonzales or brought it to Gonzales once it was commandeered. But yeah, so that's where the "Come and Take It" comes from. But yeah,
And we
I don't
did
know how we got
lose
off on
that
this
battle,
tangent.
didn't we?
What the Gonzales one?
No, the Alamo.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was about to
Everybody
say.
died. We lost. It
Yeah.
was not a I mean, it was a success because of this. If I remember correctly, man, we really should have done our research because we look like terrible Texans. But if I remember correctly, at least the way that we learned it in school was, I mean, obviously it was a Texans are not going to give up, and the pride of the Texan will fight till the day we finish. But ultimately, what it did is it tied up large masses of the Mexican military because they
Right.
were like, damn it, we still haven't taken this thing over because these guys aren't going to surrender. So we were like, no, we're just going to keep biding our time here. And so it tied up those resources so that everybody could, like Sam Houston and all his folks, could regather armies that then came and obliterated the rest of the Mexican army. So we were
Mm,
basically just biding time. We were really holding out. It was like a real strategic military play, even though those folks were going to die. Like it was critical for the success of the Texas Revolution, but only because it tied up all these resources because we didn't give up. So everybody else was
mm.
able to fucking really build up the masses and take over.
Yeah. That's that's sad, but it's important.
It's also it's also crazy to think that like I mean I'm sure the communication back and forth was not all that solid. Like
Yeah, I was gonna
I guess
say.
you had like couriers and stuff that would like take letters, but like by this time, once like they established themselves as a front and they had this thing like surrounded on
Yeah,
multiple sides.
there's nothing coming in and out at that point.
No, and a lot of it was being commandeered, and they were forcing them to write letters back to the other side of the army that were lies. But if you think about it, they were still like, look, we're not going to make it. And they knew this, and they knew they were going to die slowly over time. Um, but they ultimately were like, if we could just hold out, things are only going to get better for everybody else, regardless of all the false messaging that was going back. And I think even like Sam
Hmm.
Houston and all his folks, they were like, yeah, so these letters we're getting back are bullshit. There's no way whoever was in there, like Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, there's no way they would fucking write like that. They don't
That's
care.
why I think Bowie's name was David, because of Davy Crockett.
Yeah, dude.
That's why. God, dude, this is how long it's been since I've actually. I remember the Alamo all the time, but I don't stud. I haven't studied it in
Dude,
16 years or so.
I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day. We had I don't remember, we take Texas history as Texans. I think it's like seventh or eighth grade. I think it's seventh
Yeah,
grade.
it's something like that.
Um, and I remember the textbook that we had. Like, I remember loving that textbook, not just because I loved Texas history. I guess it's ingrained in us as Texans, but also because I just love the way that textbook was. And it goes through the good and the bad. Like, it had all the stuff that we did to the Indians, which was terrible.
Oh,
Texans were no
horrible!
relief to the. But
Absolutely horrible.
anyways, it was just a very good textbook, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I wish I could get a copy of that and just reread it because it was unlike many other textbooks that we had where they were just miserable to read. You were like, this is shit, dude, this is
Hmm.
terrible. Like I remember enjoying reading that one little by little. It was one of the few classes that I actually read the text for.
Yeah, we're the only state that studies our state history.
I did know that in I guess primary education. In college you can take like I took Louisiana history in college just
Well,
because
yeah,
I was
in
in Louisiana.
in college you can, and I'm
Yeah.
sure like people that go to law school do it for individual states as well, wherever they're going to practice or whatnot. But
Oh, I would imagine.
But in like grade school, yeah, we're the only state that it's a necessity, like it's a requirement to take Texas history. I just think that's absolutely hilarious. I don't know
Well,
why,
I
but
mean,
I mean, we
it's
have
hilarious.
it is because we have so much history, you know?
I
Like,
mean,
I mean, we were technically our own country for a little
that's
bit.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, like, how many other state were there any other? I mean, I'm not saying Texas is so. I mean, I do believe it's better, but I'm just saying, like, was there anyone else that was a country before they were a state? I'm not talking shit. I'm just being honest.
No, I don't. I genuinely don't think so. I mean, you had
Oh,
like the
okay.
13 original colonies, but that they were all together still, And as far as anything else out this way, no, definitely not. Um, they were all
Yeah.
pretty much purchased at one time and then split apart.
Scout 'em, shout 'em, tell all about 'em. You remember that song about the
No, I
13
don't.
original colonies? All
I
right.
don't
Well,
actually.
I only
That was
remember it
that was
because at
before my
one
time.
point. Well, I mean, no, it was like a. I think it's like a famous song. Like you would not like the Star Spangled Banner famous, but like it was pretty famous. There's just a video clip of when we're young. This was, we're gonna say BR. It was before Randall, but there was
Oh,
like some
yeah.
video clips where Meredith had memorized it, and so it was just hilarious because
Uh,
she was very proud to sing it, and that's why it still rings in my head, scratched in there.
just to know the 13 colonies.
Yeah, I don't know if you even list them, but it talks about the 13. I don't know all the words, okay, but nonetheless.
You know what I was randomly thinking the other day, that I don't remember probably about 80% of the state's capitals anymore. And I used to be able to, obviously in school when you learn it, you have to like know it for tests and stuff. But I mean, even up through high school when I didn't really learn all that stuff in that time, I could still tell you probably about 90% of them at that point. But I was trying to think of them like I, I was trying to think of I can't even think of Alabama's.
Tuscaloosa?
Is it Tuscaloosa? Because that's
I
what
don't
I
know.
said, and then I was like, oh no, that can't be right. You know,
Um,
I mean, I know like Texas, obviously. Actually, the sad part is when I originally started.
Montgomery.
Oh, yeah,
Montgomery. Yeah. Anyway.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's kind of sad. I've forgotten all that. Just like I've forgotten a lot of the Texas history that I learned. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would be interested in going back and sharpening up on that.
there's got
Uh,
to be some good. I mean, there's obviously like the history shows, right? Like the things that built America and whatnot, or like how the states were, how their shapes were made, or whatever. That's actually a really cool show.
oh yeah, we talked a little bit about this. I always just thought it was because people got lazy. Did we mention this?
No, I think we just talked about it off podcast at some point.
I mean, it's just so like there's all this cluster of shit that was going on with the 13. They're like, oh, this is our space, and we're like, who cares about a couple hundred acres? Like, you
Yeah.
can have it, right? And they were just all these odd shapes. I like the way New York was selfish. They were like, we want all this big stuff up here, but we also want this little sliver that's like at a very extremely important port. Anyway, all that's going on the East Coast, and then further out we got West, and they were just like, yeah, screw it. We're just gonna make these bastards square, you
Well, I
know?
think
Just
I think they just purchased so much land and then they were splitting it up and they were like, "Does it really matter?" You know?
dude, I bet it was like manifest destiny. Then we started moving west, and they're like, "Damn, we bit off more than we could chew."
God, destiny is
That's
huge.
I swear there's water over here. They've been lying to us, all these Native Americans.
All these engines. That's what they call
Uh,
them.
but speaking of, so again, back to San Antonio. Speaking of San Antonio, um, it's not truly if you look at the state itself, but like to me, not just because of the history of the Alamo or the I guess development of a state from a country or a proud country city as it was back in the day. But to me, San Antonio is the heart of Texas. Like
Mhm.
being in Houston, like we're super Houston proud. There's the people that are Dallas proud. If you think about Texas as a human being, Dallas is probably more fitting for the heart, for it to be the heart, like physically. But to me, San Antonio is the heart of Texas. Screw Austin, screw anything else like that's in the city. No, no disrespect, but like to me, San Antonio feels like the heart of Texas. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Well, first of all, though, for me, it's one of my favorite places to visit in Texas, like that whole San Antonio area, right? Like New Braunfels, Green,
Uh,
all that stuff, like San Marcos. And really it's because of the scenery, man. I just love the way it looks and it feels. So I think I have to agree with you just based on the feeling alone. Like when I'm there, I do feel like this is Texas. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that rocky, um, not like desert necessarily, but you know what I mean? Like just out in the country kind of feeling no matter where you're at. And that's to me what Texas is.
yeah, it's like the elements can be a little brutal. Like it's hot. When it
Hmm.
rains, there's flash flooding. Not that that doesn't happen in Houston, but like I don't know. It's very fitting, and maybe it's kind of a little cliche, but like the way that Texas is represented to the rest of the United States or the rest of the world is kind of San Antonio, if you think
Yeah.
about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
and there's nothing bad with that. Like, I think that's a stereotype that is like it's not a negative stereotype. It just kind of fits.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. There's like the most melding of cultures. It is a beautiful place. Also, I'm not gonna say it gets like shat on, but it does get forgotten. I think a
Yeah.
little more than the larger cities nowadays. Maybe not back in the day, but like people are like, "Oh, you're from Texas. Where are you closer to Dallas or Houston?" You know what I mean? Or, "Oh, what do you? How do you like?" I always get the question, "How do you like Austin?" Which the answer is always a little sketchy, but the San Antonio, it just doesn't get thrown in the mix. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it
I think that
doesn't.
it's more representative than of Texas as a whole than any other city. I think.
I can agree. I've also never been to Austin, so I can't speak of Austin, but I have heard a lot about Austin.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just really
it's
weird, right? Because Texas is my home state, and I've never been to the capital, and I feel like pretty much any other state except for like Florida and California, you go to the capital just because it's like an hour drive from you max.
I mean, oh yeah, because well, I don't know. Florida and California are huge, so you probably live a little further than an hour from
Well,
it.
no,
But
as I said, except them those two, like every
oh
other
yeah, you're
state,
right.
and maybe
Oh yeah,
Alaska. Alaska's pretty big too, so
yeah, but you're really only populating the capital.
yeah,
That's why it's the
that's fair.
capital. They're like, where do we have people? This one city, and they're like, we'll make that the capital.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not saying forgo Austin altogether. Like, obviously, I have my own personal feelings about Austin, but I
Right.
would say go see the capital for sure. I mean, it's beautiful, it's awesome, it's great. There's a lot of cool things that Austin has to offer, but like I feel more Texan and more at home and in the heart of Texas in San Antonio or any other
Yeah.
city than Austin. Well, not any other city, but I would say San Antonio. If San Antonio were the capital, I would be like, that is very fitting. Very fitting.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. In fact, there was a while when I was a kid that I did think it was the capital. Like I thought San Antonio was Austin, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like I didn't think San Antonio was the capital, but I thought they were the same city. And I mean they're not super far from each other, but
There's a lot of also too. I mean, there's a bunch of different cities that have like a cool nightlife. Austin obviously because of the university and because of just it being Austin has phenomenal food, has probably some crazy, not crazy nightlife, but like very historic nightlife, right?
mm,
Old nightlife that's still around. Um, but San Antonio has that too, and not just because of the Riverwalk right there near the Alamo, but there's just a lot of nightlife that's very entertaining yet safer and classier than other places in Texas, I would say.
okay. Well, that's good to know. If you want to come visit, go check out San Antonio for the nightlife.
I would say I recommend like everybody is like, "Oh, I'm coming to Texas. Where do I need to go?" Because we actually recently had some friends uh, from Louisiana that were doing a road trip to Austin, and then he started like I don't know. Again, I'm not trashing Austin, but I recommended that. I was like, if you're doing a trip to Texas, like don't worry about hitting. I mean, there's awesome things in Houston, but don't worry about hitting Houston. Don't worry about hitting Dallas. Like, if you want to do Texas, in my opinion, go to San Antonio. You're gonna get all of the facets of Texas there.
Yeah, and listen, I love Houston. You know, I'm from here, but realistically, I mean, there's stuff to do, but like, there's daytime stuff to do. You
Yeah,
know, like the
I agree.
nightlife, I'm sure is cool and like downtown, I guess, but like, that's not my kind of nightlife. My kind of nightlife is much more like what San Antonio is like.
I agree.
Like,
The other The other
especially
thing
the
too,
river walk.
maybe it's just we actually had this joke off pod, but we had this joke or we had this conversation about like why people would settle certain places, you know?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know why, you know, Houston is obviously because of like the port availability, but just the climate was terrible. It's the sea level, like it's just ugh, right?
yeah.
I mean, what do we have here? Oil and more oil refining, and only because of the ports. Like I could see very easily, like justifiably, way back in the gap, how somebody got to San Antonio and they were like, "Yeah, I would settle here." The nights are like that cool,
Hmm.
um, you know what I mean? Like that cool. You get out
Yes.
of the shower and you don't need MCP. There's no mandatory cooling period necessary if you're in San Antonio and you get out of the shower. Um, I don't know. It's just like that comfortable all the time. Like I know during the summer it gets hot, but it's still comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's not incredibly muggy,
No,
like ever. Even after it rains, it doesn't really get that muggy.
no.
I don't know why that is up there. It might be because of the fact that it is really rocky instead of like soil at a lot of places. But
Possibly.
I do love it, man. I genuinely think that if I lived anywhere else in Texas, that would 100% be where I move, like San Antonio
Oh yeah.
area.
I would say. I mean, well, I would say yeah. San Antonio probably just because of like it being a larger city and what's available, but definitely that hill country. We've talked about that many times. Like the only place outside of Texas right now that I would live would be Charleston, and then the only place in Texas that I would go to would be river, like
Yeah,
river country.
yeah,
San
100%.
Antonio kind of being the throw a dart and that's the center of it. Anything within proximity around it.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. It's just gorgeous, dude. The red rocks and stuff that are out there, I love it. I mean, going out there to New Braunfels every, summer as a kid for the first 12 years of my life or whatever was one of the best things that I ever did, you know?
It's again, not to make. I know we're kind of getting into all things Texas because it's fitting here for the Bowie Bock. But there's that George Strait song that talks about like cold Fort Worth beer just ain't no good in Dallas. In my
Mm,
opinion, all beer, any beer I've ever had, and I'm not just saying this because we're on the podcast right now, but any beer that I've ever had tastes better in San Antonio because the atmosphere outside, whether it's the music life, whether it's the weather, like I said, that comfortable, cool, calm. There's like a calm before the storm, but the storm never hits. That's kind of the feeling of San Antonio, right?
yeah.
Um, so it's not always colder, but it's gonna taste fitting. Like it tastes appropriate, right? You're under the trees. They're mossy because it's overlooking river, right? There's that cool wind that's coming off the river. Or it's during the day and it's a billion degrees and you're surrounded by rocks and little shrubby trees because there's no big ass trees there. Every beer tastes better there to me. I'm not gonna say cocktail, but every beer tastes better in that setting. Like any wedding we've been to out there, the beer was better. Any day drinking, and it could be shit beer, but it could be good beer too. And they're all just gonna be more enjoyed in that environment, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have personally never had a beer in in that particular environment, but I can 100% agree with what you're saying without ever having doing it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
weird. I didn't even think about it till just now, but yeah, it's yeah.
it is. It's just a great place. It really is. Also, so I took a couple trips out to San Diego. Or we drove out there a couple times, and we drive right through San Antonio on the way out there because you take I-10 all the way out. Uh, so we stopped we stopped in San Antonio on one of the trips for breakfast, and I had some of the best breakfast tacos I've ever had in my life. And look, I get it. I mean, that's what they do there, right? I mean, that Mexican food is their their best cuisine out there. I mean,
100. I
tacos,
mean,
whatever, whatever. But they were. I still to this day think about them. I've thought about asking to drive out there just to eat it again.
dude, I mean, it is kind of like everybody says Houston is the what is it, the culinary capital of the South. I don't know if you know this,
Yeah, Houston's great.
but
We have a lot of great
it is.
food.
But it has nothing on because in San Antonio you can get real like valley Mexican
Oh yeah.
food. Right? So there's a bunch of different things going on there. You can have like Mexican food, and I mean like
Hmm.
Mexico, and even the variations within Mexico, right? Because
Yeah.
like northern Mexico, eastern Mexico, southern Mexico, there's a whole different variation in cuisine. All of that is represented within San Antonio separately. But then you also get Valley Mexican food, which is like Texican, but not Tex-Mex. It's like more Mexican,
Hmm.
but Valley, the RGV, right? The Rio Grande Valley Mexican food.
Yeah.
And then you get Tex-Mex, right?
Hmm.
So there's so many different variations that regardless of what you like, you're gonna find an iteration of a classic or an iteration of a new invention that is a version that you like. But also, believe it or not, everybody talks about Austin, everybody talks about Llano, everybody talks about the Panhandle. Like San Antonio's whooping it in barbecue too. They're whooping it in
Mm.
bakeries. They got some
Yes.
killer home bakeries like
Yes.
pies, uh, uh, cobblers, shit like that. And then I don't know necessarily fine dining. They've got some fine dining there, but like, why? I mean, you need it, but you don't need it.
Yeah. Well, it's you don't go there for the fine dining. You go to places like that with that kind of lifestyle for the hole in the wall places. That's where you go to eat when you're in San Antonio. Little mom and pop hole in the wall diner with just absolutely 10 out of 10 food no matter what you get. That's that's
It's
that's the lifestyle there.
completely unrelated, but it's the first place I did axe throwing.
Huh.
Um, it
How'd
was
you do?
terrible. And here's the reason why. You know how like when you're playing, I'm not blaming it on this. I didn't freelance. I was trying to follow the rules. I know we're off topic, but you know how when you're learning to play darts, they always tell you like take like aim with your elbow and then
Yeah,
launch.
which
You know what I'm talking about?
doesn't work. Yeah.
Also, by the way, I throw axes and darts left-handed. Maybe that's the problem. But anyways, aim with your elbow and then throw. I don't know why. I don't do anything
Why?
else. I don't know. I don't do anything else left-handed.
Have you
But
ever
for
tried doing it with your right hand?
Yeah, it looks like a girl throwing a football. That's what it looks like. So that's why I always just
But
go
you
with my
don't
left hand.
but you throw a football with your right arm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, this is not the point of the story. The point of the story is that I suck.
Oh, it
But oh,
is
actually, it
now.
is kind of
It
yeah.
is
Because I
now.
mean, I suck at both darts and throwing an axe. But when you're throwing an axe, they tell you to grab it with both hands and like point with your elbows and then throw.
Hmm.
And dude, for the life of me, like I hit handle probably 80% of the time.
Oh my
And
god.
we started sober, so like it wasn't even like that was an issue. Like I don't get, it's not like golf. I don't get better as I drink. I started out like trash and I ended like trash. But yeah, that was the first time I experienced that. I haven't been better since, but anyway.
I never
Also,
threw an axe. I've thrown an axe but never at a bar. You know.
well,
I've done it like at the
it's
house.
I mean, it's I don't know, it's fun. I see how people can enjoy it, but like I'm just too like okay, like Top Golf, I'm not that great, but I can still enjoy it. Like
Hmm.
shooting pool, I'm not that great, but I can still enjoy it. It got to the point where I was so bad at throwing an axe, I was like, this isn't even really enjoyable. Like I would watch people, but
Well,
nah.
the thing that's different with Top Golf is that even if you're not hitting the ball where you want to hit it, you're still smacking the hell out of a golf ball, and it just relieves a little bit of stress. You know what I mean? Just to see how far you can slice it. Sometimes that's what I used to do because I'd slice so hard at Top Golf, I would just see how quick I could get it to the net on the side.
Um,
Yeah. So, anyways, never thrown an axe. Obviously, I can't now, but or in a bar setting at least. But I have seen some pretty terrifying videos where like people have thrown them and they bounce off and
bounce
come
back.
flying back. I'm like, bro, this is y'all do this while you're drinking?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think they're all everyone I've ever been to is BYOB, and I think that's why. Because like when you sign the
Mm,
release, they're like,
can't.
we can't like sell you liquor, get you liquored up, and then let it happen. You can drink endlessly. Um, and in fact, I mean, again, I don't know how many axe throwing places there are in San Antonio. I'm gonna guess more than one. But while we were there, this dude had a really cool trick that he would basically like take the axe and he would like punch a shotgun hole, but then he would dance the axe up so he would cut a little carb too, so it was ready to go. You didn't have to pop the can. Anyways, I
Mm.
don't know if that was part of the service, if that came with it, or he was just like a college kid trying to make ends meet. but it was clever nonetheless. It was like a street performer, but he also worked the booth and had us sign our waivers. Um,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool. That's a talent that somebody never thought that they would need, and they got.
probably still don't need it. One other thing I have to mention about,
If they're running the
I,
booth, that's a pretty good talent to have.
I mean, you're right. I guess so. Hey, you guys want to see a trick? Um, but the other thing that I have to mention, and it's not just a shout out, but one of the coolest, and I know it's a chain, but one of the coolest Howl at the Moons on in the United States. I don't know if they're overseas or not, but Howl at the Moon piano bars, one of the coolest one is in San Antonio. And here's the reason why. I don't know if they're all like this, but the one in San Antonio has a couple of things key going for itself. So the concept of Howl at the Moon, and like I said, there's some in Tennessee. I think there's some in like Kentucky. They're scattered out. I'm sure you could Google it. I could do that afterwards, but I'm not going to waste my time. Homework. Everybody gets homework every week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So homework is find out where your nearest Howl at the Moon is if you're not in the state of Texas. But it's the coolest one for multiple reasons. One, it's all like the musicians that live there. So Howl at the Moon, the concept is it's like a bar. It's upstairs. There's a bar, but there's like dueling pianos. So they do battle sometimes. I'm sure there's multiple nights where they do different tunes, but there's usually a live band that's there as well. There's a house band, but then I don't think they have like acts that come in, but there's like a bunch of local musicians that make up the circuit of who's going to be the house band for that period of time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all phenomenal musicians. Again, another thing that I think everybody talks about, Austin is basically the Nashville of the South, but there's a lot of great musicians that are in San Antonio as well. Phenomenal musicians. And so they're always, anyways, they have a lot of talent to pull from. But the coolest thing is, and this is an amazing concept, they have these two mirrors that are behind them, okay? That there's like one mirror and they butt up to each other. There's like a scene. And so when you're watching, you know, obviously you can see them from the mirror. It's a cool thing. But on it, they will start playing a song and it starts out at the beginning of the night and they put like $1, right? And then you basically can pay $1 and you can change the song that they're playing. Okay. So then it goes to $2 and then it goes to $3, $4, $5, $6. So at the beginning of the night, it's like, you know, $3 and you can have them change and play your song and they'll play it until somebody wants to either pay more money to change the song or they get finished with the song itself. Okay.
Mm.
But on the other board, this is where it gets aggressive. So that runs from when they open the shop until they close the shop. Okay. But on the other board, you can write whatever message you want, however you wish, but you have to pay whatever the fee is. Okay. So you open up for it'll be like $5 and you can just be like, happy birthday, mom, or whatever, right? And then somebody will be like, oh, okay, well, I'll pay $10 and I'll write, you know, Levi's a bag of shit. Whatever. I don't know. You can put whatever you want up there. I'm sorry if there's a Levi listening, but that was the example. But
But
why
also,
this
you're
gets
probably a bag of. No, I'm just kidding.
but anyway, so um and the why this gets so crazy is because there's a lot of like events that happen where like not universities but like alumni that are part of like the meat industry or alumni that are part of the medical industry, they come in and everybody goes to Howl at the Moon because it's great entertainment. It's
Mm.
kind of a happening place. So you've got people paying 300, 400, $500 to write, you know, gig 'em up there or hook 'em or whatever. And by the way, all of this money goes into the money pool for the musicians, right? So they
Mm.
start getting real aggressive. Like, you know, they'll be like doing a Journey tune, and then midway through, they'll be like, hook 'em horns. And then all the Aggies will be like, bullshit. So they're putting as much money as they can up there and just do that. We've seen them climb, six, seven, $800
Oh
to
my
just put,
gosh.
just put like Sue Pigs up there or something. You know what I mean?
Oh God.
And so it's just a really cool concept. So not only is the music always phenomenal, there's like a balcony area, so you get to enjoy that San Antonio life. Also for the smokers, you can step out there, which is kind of rare because you're kind of smoking but not smoking.
Hmm.
Um, and then, they have the song change thing that you can do, requests, and then they also have that other little mirror, dude. It's epic. It's just a great concept and it's super enjoyable. And of all the ones I've ever been to, I've probably been to like maybe four of them, maybe five of them. I don't know if they're all still around, but four or five of those or a very similar concept. This is by far the most enjoyment I've ever had. Like this one's always super competitive. The musicians are phenomenal. The dancing is great, things like that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds like an
And it's,
incredible time. It sounds like really like a lot of fun. I mean, I
yeah.
would really enjoy the piano in general, regardless of all
Mhm.
that other stuff. But yeah, that's a cool little extra thing that you can do. So that's pretty
Dude,
cool.
but it's not just. I mean, there's always somebody playing a piano, but like there's full bands, and they'll just be like
Oh, okay.
shredding. Oh yeah, dude. There's full bands every night. They're always gonna have a piano, but it'll be like somebody shredding Freebird on top of a like $30,000 grand piano with just like a six solos, and then midway through, somebody's like, "I'm gonna pay $15, and now you're gonna play Mary Had a Little Lamb," and he's like, "Ah, shoot." So he gets down and he plays
Dang.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
and
Have
then
you have you ever requested anything while you were there?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've never had any. Normally, by the time we get there, it's probably 10 o'clock p.m.
Mm.
Okay, so by that time, the message board's too expensive. Like I'm
Oh
not,
yeah.
But yeah, song requests aren't really crazy. I'll pay 10, 15, $20 or something like that to hear a tune. And if it's a good, the other thing too is you're kind of playing a game with yourself because like if it's a shitty tune, then somebody's gonna outpay you and they're gonna change it. But if
Yeah.
you pay and they play your song all the way through, then in your mind, like I'm the jukebox hero. Like I
Yeah.
picked a tune. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody hated it.
Exactly.
Everybody was vibing. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
It
pretty
just
awesome.
plays into the whole thing. The other last thing, and then I'll get off of it. I'll let you take over. But the other thing that's really cool is all of them are such phenomenal musicians that pretty much every, I'd say 30 minutes, they rotate. So you'll go from playing guitar to playing bass or playing bass to playing the piano or piano to drums. And honestly, you don't even know. Like I'm sure there's one that's better at something else, but like they're so good overall that you can't tell. Like I'm sure that like if they were to do, have you ever seen that thing that they do on TikTok or on Instagram where it's like guess our guitarist and it's a
Oh
bunch of people
yeah.
playing?
Hmm.
I'm sure you could do that for each of the things and you could tell who's the better pianist or who's the better bassist or whatever. But they're so good that even when they rotate, they don't miss a lick and you can't really tell.
Yeah. I was always jealous of musicians that could do that because, like,
Yeah.
I played the guitar. I was never incredible at it, but I was good. And I could. I tried playing the drums and the piano, and I just couldn't do it. But every person that I know that can play the drums or the piano can play any instrument,
I
any
would,
like band instrument, not necessarily like uh, like a flute or anything like that, but like
yeah.
guitar, bass, piano, keyboard, whatever you want to call it, and then drums.
I would say that for sure. I would say that if you can play the piano, then you can play any, like I said, any mainstream band instrument, anything stringed for sure, plus percussionist for the most part.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I can half-ass understand a piano, technically a stringed instrument. I can play the piano a little bit, but basic chords and basic chord shapes. That's it. I'm not getting crazy with it.
I
Obviously,
can't. My
bass.
my my brain never worked enough for me to do two separate things with my fingers on my on my hands. Like
Yeah,
I can't be wiggling my pinky on the right side, slapping an ivory, and
yeah,
doing a chord on the other hand. My brain wouldn't let me do it. I was
yeah. I would
always
say
so
I'm.
jealous. That's the same with the drums because I could never
Oh,
do my legs different than my arms. I can't.
I
I
can't even
just
keep like so. It's surprising. Like I can keep very good time with the string, not a piano. Like I'm basic when it comes to piano. Ding, ding, ding,
hmm
ding, 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 whatever. Um,
Yeah, that's me.
I can keep very, very, very accurate time in my head playing a guitar. So like even without a click track, I'm fairly solid there, right?
Hmm.
Dance like very good. And but drums, dude, not to save my life, dude.
No,
I can't even just no feet, just keep time with my hands. Nothing.
no,
Or just with my feet. I can't even keep time with my feet.
no.
I would love to. That's what I all the way to also too when I'm driving. Maybe it's not safe to say this, but when I'm driving, that's what I default to. I'm a drummer when I drive. I never
Oh
try me. I'm
yeah.
just like, oh, let me rip a solo or
Oh yeah,
hit
you're
hit some
slapping the
vocals. Dude, I'm always just this is nothing. I don't know what this is,
it's
but that's what I do.
it's doing
If
nothing.
I
I'm just slapping air at this point.
if I could have picked an instrument, that's what I would have liked to play because I think maybe I would have had a better shot of understanding more instruments overall.
Hmm.
But nah, we strike out here
It's
now.
also the most inconvenient instrument to play by far.
Oh yeah,
The drums. Like because of the setup, the noise, everything about it. Like a guitar you can pretty much play in any setting anywhere.
the cost.
Oh yeah, the cost, yeah, very expensive. But I mean, even a piano, you can turn the volume of it down and jam out at midnight. You know what I mean?
Or
A
or a
keyboard, at
keyboard.
least.
Yeah, the problem is this is that like I think you can get a pretty good experience with a decent keyboard, right? Like
Hmm.
again, that price I know prices of play here and we're talking about that a little bit, but you can get a pretty good experience with a certain volume or certain quality of keyboard. But dude, to me a drum set like dude, like there's no electric drum set in the world that's worth a shit. No offense to the people that are developing those, but like it's just
It's
not
not the
something that's
same. It's
no,
not, yeah, because I've played one. Well,
not at all.
again, very roughly played one, and it just doesn't feel the same as like a real drum. The sticks don't bounce the same. It doesn't. It just and nothing about it feels right. Even when you're sitting
There,
behind it, there's a different feeling because of the
there's
less space that it takes up and stuff. I don't know.
I think because
I just when I'm
whether
playing sorry, when I'm playing an electric one, I just feel like I'm playing Rock Band. You know what I mean? Or like Guitar Hero or whatever.
I think it's because I think the problem with an electric, and I'm sure they've gotten way better. We are way off topic, and this has nothing to do with anything. But saddle up, partner.
Well,
Here we go.
we're here.
Um, I feel like with an acoustic versus an electric guitar, um, there's nuances to what your fingers are doing. Like think about like the way you palm mute is different than the way that I palm mute. The
Hmm.
way that I, stress or slide or whatever or hammer on is slightly different. You could be similar, but slightly different.
Right.
But all of the nuance of the mistake and what's happening and the way the fingers work is is happening whether you're playing an acoustic or an electric guitar. In drums, an electric set doesn't have, oh, he hit a little further this way on the pad, or oh, he actually clipped the rim of the drum, but he clipped it near a tuning key, so therefore it was a tighter sound, right? The
Hmm.
cymbal has a little bit of a crack in it, right? So the only way it's ever going to sound like this when he hits the bell is because this cymbal is jacked up, right?
Right.
It's almost like electric. Think about like a drum machine, right? It's so perfect that there's no variability that makes things cool. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow. If we want to save people from just being bored out of their minds, we could cut that last whatever three,
No,
four,
I
five,
think it's
six,
pretty
10 minutes.
interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. Going back to your point real quick about like how you just couldn't keep time on the drums in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, kicking the foot pedal. I couldn't. I
No,
couldn't
no,
do it on beat at all ever. Not a single time could I do it.
no. And then here, I guess the difference too is like whenever you're playing guitar, if you get off or you can kind of like kind
Get
of play
back
it back
into it a
in.
little
You know what
bit.
I'm saying? Get back.
Yeah.
With drums, dude, as soon as I get out of pace, I'm like, uh-oh.
Oh
And then it's gone.
yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
way I'm coming back. Not at all.
Yes, immediately.
Yeah.
I would get so mad at the people that could play drums because I was just like, man, because it really is when you can play an instrument like that or the piano, or I'll stand by that. It's much easier to learn any other instrument because you already understand, beat, right? If you play the drums, you
Yeah.
understand stand on beat better than almost anybody except maybe a bassist, but that's the same thing. You know what I mean?
It's
Uh,
very, yeah.
and then uh, as far as like a piano player, like every chord known to mankind because you had to play it on the ivories, so I was
Yeah,
always jealous.
yeah, the power last comment because this could go on forever. This could be a separate episode, beer or non-beer. This might be an off pod. You know how like when you're in one of those like corporate settings, you're like, let's take this offline. This is probably one that fits in the off pod bucket. But the other thing is like it blows my like again having played music right and sitting with like a drummer or whatever. very rarely, if you're playing with a full group, very rarely is anybody going to be able to, like, you can look at one another and be like, hey, we're off time. That doesn't mean that we're off time. That means just like we're slow. As a group, we're
Mm-hmm.
together, but we're slow. Or as a
Mm-hmm.
group together, we're fast. The only person, I'll give the basis a little bit, but the only person that can truly dictate and change that is a drummer.
Yeah.
You give him that little wink and he's like, "Oh, okay. I need to slow her down a bit." And then we
Yeah.
all settle into that pot. The bassist gets in groove, everybody settles in pocket. The same exact thing can happen if you're too slow, right? And you're like, "This is supposed to be a killer song and we're just barely dragging through it." You give him that wink and he's like, "I got you, fam." And he just rock and rolls. So, I don't know. I don't think there's any other instrument like maybe a piano could do it if that's like the bass instrument, maybe, but nah. All right,
Yeah.
hats off to drummers. We came
Yeah.
full circle on that. So we remembered the Alamo. We also remembered that 3 blocks down on the left hand side, there's a bar. And in that bar, there's a piano. There's phenomenal musicians. It's deep in the heart of Texas. And that's why drummers are important. Cool. Thanks for going on that journey with us.
Yeah. We made it, but we've made it also toward the end of the episode here, and we got to get into the WWYBD.
Let's get it.
I usually skip right over that and try to go to the ratings, but this time I
Oh, no.
remembered. Um, I can go first. We talked a lot about San Antonio and that just that scenery is just so beautiful and everything. But when I do, I've had beers similar to this on the podcast, and they always seem to remind me of like being around a campfire.
Hmm.
Maybe it's the little toastiness in this one that we tasted that's making me feel like that, but I'm gonna refrain from necessarily saying a campfire. And where I see myself is at um, our grandmother's house in New Braunfels, man.
Okay.
Whenever she used to live out there, we would, I mentioned it earlier, we'd go out there every summer for a week or so. Um, but yeah, I see myself being out there with the family on the concrete back patio, within the concrete's ice cold because it's nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
Scorpions crawling up it, the kids are running around with jars trying to catch them and everything. Um, just hanging out with family by a heater, uh, with her dog sitting on your lap, big ass Doberman. But that's what I see myself doing. It's really tasty, a nice crisp flavor, but also just a little bit of that stoutness to kind of keep you warm in the cool weather.
Okay. I feel you. It's very so again. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Mine's very similar, but I think I would take this. This would be a great hill country wedding crashing beer,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
You go into you hope that it's there, but if not, you're gonna bring a couple sixers. You're gonna drink their beer a little bit. You're gonna bring a couple sixers because it's like right at nighttime, right? Most weddings are in the afternoon. It goes to nighttime, but it's where it's cool. There's no mosquitoes, river water, breezy trees, nightfall. It's right on the tinge of, hey, I'm in pants and like a button down, but I'm a little sweaty from earlier during the ceremony, so I'm
Yes.
starting to get a little chilly,
Yeah.
right?
The
That's what
breeze
I'm
is
drinking.
cooling off the sweat. Yeah.
Exactly. Like
Uh,
it's designed to do, but if you're in an
yeah.
environment like Houston where it's too damn wet already, you don't cool off any.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's a hill country wedding crashing beer for me.
Yeah, definitely. The branding and the location that it's brewed and everything probably played into my WWYBD to a large extent, but nonetheless, I'll stick by it.
I would definitely drink, I would seek it out. I would drink it again. This would be one that I think is probably better on tap. I'm not downgrading it at all, but I bet you it's better on tap.
Oh yeah.
Um, and some beers are, some beers aren't. But this one I think would be for sure. Um, I'm not gonna say it ranks. It doesn't beat any other Bach that I've had before, but
No,
it's good.
I agree.
It's good.
Yeah, I would seek it out, buy it again for sure.
But
Enjoy it again.
I would also say this though. It's not a we've had beers in the past where we're like, oh, that's not a pilsner, or I don't know
Hmm.
if that's a Mexican cerveza. This is definitely a Bock, but it's a different Bock, and it doesn't beat my version of Bock.
Yeah.
Which is a
So
great segue.
yeah, it is. It is. So yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna get into the ratings here because that plays into some of my ratings. Um, so on this one, on an entry, I gave it a 4. I think it's pretty solid. Again, not the best one I've ever had, the best feeling I've
I
ever
agree.
had. The aftertaste, I did give it a 3 because of the toastiness. I didn't do much research on their website. I don't know if it's supposed to be a toasted Bock, but it doesn't say it anywhere that I can see clearly. So that's the only reason it's a 3. It's still delicious though.
Sure.
Body, actually, I'm gonna give the body. I have it at a 4, but I'm gonna give it a 5. I think it's really solid. It's delicious. The color, I also have it a 5. It could be a 4. It might be a little dark for what I expect a Bock, but it's pretty close. Bitterness, I've got it at a 5. It's pretty much spot on for me and what I like. Acidity, I also have it at a 5. Again, it's not too fruity or anything. It's pretty much spot on. It's just not my favorite. And then fizz, I have it at a 3. I didn't get many burps.
Yeah.
Um, but that might be a good thing because I feel like the burps might have not been very good tasting if I would have got them. I don't know why I think that, but I do.
I had a few
Which
early on, but
Yeah, I had a couple pretty early and like one here or there, but not very many. So that brings my total to a 30.
oh,
Um,
good. So we kind of had a very similar, like, so again, like 6 being the best that I think of in a Bach. We've been over this a million times. I'm not going to reiterate, right? But
yeah.
entry, I also have it a 4, right? Because
Hmm.
it's not the best. It's not a 6. And then I think others beat it, so it can't be a 5, right? That's my
Right.
reasoning there. But entry, I have a 4. Aftertaste, I have a 4. Regardless of if it's supposed to be toasted or not, I kind of like the fact that normally I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, it's consistent. It's a 4 to 4. It's consistent. But I kind of like the way that it finishes a little different because it's not earth shattering or overwhelming on the
Hmm.
entry. Body, I have it a 4. Easily could have played at a 5. I think there were times where I wanted it to be a little more. I've explained that in the past. Color,
Hmm.
I have it a 5. I wish Box were a little darker and deeper and more cognac than they are. So this one kind of melds to my taste there. Bitterness, I have a 4. Again, kind of where it should be for as good as it's going to rank. Acidity, I have it a 4. I also had fizz at a 3. It stacked up very well. Had a phenomenal head. It was beautiful whenever it was, filling out in the glass. I had some burps early on, but then they went away. I don't necessarily crave the burp. They weren't uh, a bad experience at the beginning, but a couple of more as we continue to drink, because I drank all 3 of mine, or I'm gonna drink all 3 of mine. Um, they could have been a little more fruitful. So I got a total of 28, which 28 to 30, you said?
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of our
Yeah.
reasoning, honestly, I could have dropped some of those 5s down to 4 for the same reason that you gave. Just because, I've said this before on the podcast, Bocks are my favorite style of beer.
Yep.
And I have a very high ceiling for what the perfect one is. And, this one's good. It's just not as good as some other ones I have that had been 5s. So,
I agree. One thing I am very appreciative of is the fact that it doesn't have an overwhelming sweetness at the beginning, at
yes.
the end, that settles over time. So I'm thankful for that. Maybe the toasted has something to do with that, but sometimes you get whatever iteration of a Bach and you're like, oh, it's great. You drink a couple of them, and then the third one, you're like, is this syrup? What is this?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not doing that for sure.
Yeah. This
So
is, as you would say, and quite obviously, because you're going to be drinking the third one now, not a fridge sitter.
no, no,
Not
no,
by
no.
any means. Very good. Repeatable. Will get again if I see it. Recommend it to any Bach lovers out there for sure. 100%. All right. Well, we are at that point in the podcast where I'm going to go tell you to follow us on social media on TikTok and Twitter at Off the Tap Pod and on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Off the Tap Podcast.
And as always, I'll leave you with this. Brown Bach Bowie Bold. Beautiful, bodacious, breathtaking. Beyond, before, beneath boundaries. Bowie Bach believes being better be best. Bring boastful broad beast to bear. Be bountiful.